We're looking at footage of Anna Maria Island the day before the hurricane hit. Yes, I actually went on the island the day before the hurricane and got footage of the island as it looked like before the hurricane. Now, if you guys don't know, Anna Maria Island had a storm surge that just about destroyed the island. We're talking about structural damages to buildings, roads that got washed away, and about 2 feet of sand over the road in most places. Now, the only way you're actually going to get footage after the hurricane right now would be with a helicopter because the island is incommunicated. Most people who had any common sense left the island and followed the evacuation orders. Unfortunately, a lot of people did not listen to the evacuation orders. And part of the reason why the public is not allowed back on these islands is so that law enforcement can go building by building and look for bodies. So we still don't have a death count off these islands because they're still in that process. Lombo Key completely destroyed. Anna Maria Island completely destroyed. From Naples all the way to Cedar Key, a path of destruction has taken place along the entire west coast of Florida, short of the Panhandle. This is the intersection of Cortez and Gulf. The water now goes to about where that hill is right there. It's just all got washed away. I got us this footage right before the hurricane, knowing that after the hurricane, this island would never look the same again. And it really hurts me. This building right here had some substantial damage structurally to it right there on the left, that blue building. There's photos of that building that are just destroyed. Well, the island is a mess. The road's missing, it's covered in sand, and it's going to take a very long time for the island to look the same. Now, I'm seeing photos on social media, Facebook, and it looks like law enforcement is out there, and there's already crews cleaning off the sand to allow access to the island. Of course, one of the biggest problems when they clear off the island is people want to, tour the island. They want to see all the destruction, and this damaged tourism gets in the way of the actual cleanup efforts. Now, Anna Maria Island is geographically small, but it's important to a lot of people, and people want to see the destruction on the island, but that gets in the way of the rebuilding process. So with all this, we remember with Fort Myers, Hurricane Ian left a death toll of 150 people. The overwhelming majority of those people were in Naples, Fort Myers Beach, Bonita Springs, and Cape Coral. And the overwhelming number of those people died by drowning in the hurricane storm surge. So you would think with this recent experience just 2 years ago in Florida, where 150 people died during a hurricane, the vast majority of them drowning during the storm surge, that we would learn our lesson about getting off these barrier islands during hurricanes. Well, we didn't. The death toll is already up to 30. Now, the number of people that are still trapped on the island, and we're going to have to find out the actual number eventually. But the problem here was that despite the fact the state of Florida has already experienced flooding on islands, hurricanes that cause much destruction, the people are just so stupid and stubborn that they don't listen. Now, I'm all for respecting other people's beliefs, but there's a local myth that really was overdue. We have a local myth here where the people in Barrington and Sarasota believe that their islands and their beaches here will never be destroyed because they believe that an Indian woman made some type of deal with the Spaniards, and because of that, this area will never be destroyed by a hurricane because there's Native American burial grounds here that protect the area from hurricanes. And again, I'm all for respecting other people's beliefs, but when your beliefs kill 150 people, it might be time to reconsider it. And you know what? Fine. If you believe that, nobody's aggressively going after your belief. We're just asking that you don't stay on an island so where the rest of us have to go pick up your bodies. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you believe. It's the fact that you could believe whatever you want, but please get off the island for the evacuation order. If you don't believe, and I'm not saying you shouldn't believe whatever, you can believe whatever you want, but that doesn't change reality. And just because you believe something doesn't have to mean that now you're going to go and put your life and the lives of other people in danger by staying on an island when an imminent storm surge is coming. But to put it bluntly, there's a local myth that these islands are protected, and that's why this area hasn't been hit by a hurricane in over 100 years, and the locals refuse to get off the island when there's an evacuation order because they believe they're protected by some Indian women. Turns out that that is questionable at this point, since we just had an incredible amount of destruction on the island, and thankfully it wasn't as bad as Fort Myers Beach, or the death toll here would have been significantly higher because I do believe that the number of people that stayed on this island was overwhelming and unnecessary. The good thing is that crews are working heavily on the island, and it seems like they're going to get this place open in no time. But the rebuilding process will be very lengthy and elaborate, and I believe that the construction workers are going to start to clash with the tourists since the island will now have to be flooded with people working. It's clear to see that space is very tight on the island. You're going to have all the workers, plus the tourists that are still going to go to beaches, plus the idiots that want to see the hurricane destruction. All that is going to make for a very chaotic and not so pleasant experience on the island moving forward. With tight spaces and all these people, we can assume that it's going to become, well, kind of unpleasant and unbearable to be on the island. But that will not deter people who want to go to the beaches. There's going to be a lot of destruction out there. There's going to be boards with nails. There's going to be pieces of sharp aluminum, glass. You could easily get hurt on the beaches moving forward. And I guess after all of the natural disasters that we have seen in the Sarasota and Bradenton area in the last little bit, it's questionable whether these Indian mounds actually protect anything. After all, the biggest Indian mound is Mound Key in Estero Bay, Florida, which overlooks Fort Myers Beach, which had a 15-foot storm surge 2 years ago. But again, ignorance of people has no limitations, and neither does stupidity. And in this event, we saw how a lot of people stayed behind in evacuation zones because they didn't believe the evacuation orders to their own detriment. Perhaps they're on social media bragging as if these were acts of heroism before it happens, but after the event, they realized it was nothing more than an act of stupidity. The rest of us in society already saw that coming. Well, regardless, people seem to struggle to follow these evacuation orders. The people whose job it is to put these orders in place, their entire careers revolve around making sure that people's lives are saved when the moment comes, but people don't listen. In the case of Fort Myers Beach, they said their rights as an American, can't nobody tell me to leave my house. Well, a 15-foot storm surge told you to leave your house. The craziest things about these storm surges is we know they're coming, we have anticipation, and if people simply follow the orders to evacuate these areas, the death toll would be zero. But now these police officers have to go and check house by house looking for bodies and then extract the bodies when they find them because people are too stupid for their own good. This is a simple wake-up call to the people of Manatee County that things have to be done differently in the future. Looking at the city of Bradenton, we got lucky. I know it feels like we lost everything with the amount of destruction we have, but again, coming from Fort Myers, we got really lucky. The city of Bradenton sits practically at sea level with a few exceptions of a few hilly areas. And by hilly in Florida, I mean more than 12 feet above sea level. In the case of Bradenton, it's a worse than Katrina disaster waiting to happen. The day a storm surge actually pushes into Tampa Bay, Florida, this will be worse than Katrina. In a city like Bradenton that sits barely above sea level, by the way, we didn't have any wind damages. Mobile homes in Bradenton. Bradenton has more mobile homes per capita and by number than anywhere in Florida, even more than Jacksonville. The day we actually get wind damage combined with storm surge, the city of Bradenton is going to be completely destroyed. It has more mobile homes than anywhere else in Florida. It's practically at sea level from one end to the other, and the people here are practically broke. Now, Anna Maria Island, most people here can afford to rebuild, but when you get back into Bradenton, there wasn't that much damage in Bradenton from what I can see. The day that Bradenton gets what Fort Myers got, the people in Bradenton don't have enough money to rebuild. You have a huge population of people here who live in a coastal community who don't have enough money to rebuild if they get coastal community damages. Well, it's not about panicking and losing your mind, but in reality, in the case of following evacuation orders, the consequences are there. The number of deaths with every storm simply because people cannot follow directions. Simple directions that inconvenience your day for a lifetime. If you can afford to live on this island, you can definitely afford a hotel, so there's no excuses. Remember with Hurricane Ian, we saw the sheriffs and the governors doing extensive press conferences. For some reason, they've been awfully quiet with this one. Now, I went to the island and tried to convince people that I saw on the island that were planning to stay to get off the island, but I don't think anybody actually listened to me. In fact, I actually got people who became somewhat irritated and offended that I would question their intelligence. But, well, guess what? You were wrong. Alright guys, so I'll leave you with the remainder of this footage of what the island looked like the day before the hurricane. And you guys can get in the comments and tell me what you think. It's going to be a while before we see this island look like this again. And it looks like local government is getting the island open as soon as possible. Unlike Fort Myers Beach, where they dragged their feet, made lengthy press conferences, that's not looking to be the case here. It looks like they're getting to work with machinery, not with podiums.
YouTube, my man. I follow you, dog. Yeah, bro.
I'm getting recognized like on a daily basis now. Our YouTube channel is really growing this area, and I want to thank everybody in Bradenton, Sarasota, Tampa area. If you see me in public, say what's up like this guy did. You know, I'm a regular person. I may be, have a lot of people that know me, but I'm just a regular person. So if you see me on the streets, don't be afraid to say hello. I won't bite you. On this particular day, I got recognized twice here, and I think it was over by Ruskin somewhere. But anyways, it's awesome, and I love it when people say hello to me. But I'm a regular person, so don't be afraid to say hi. I'm definitely not hiding from anybody. I even go Uber driving in bad areas at night, so we could run into each other. I also took footage of the mobile home parks in Bradenton. Luckily, these mobile home parks survived. I did this in case I was going to show a before and after wind damage destruction video, which I did it in Fort Myers, and the before was there and the after, it was gone. There was nothing left. I tried to do a before and after footage of a lot of the mobile home parks in Fort Myers Beach, and I did the before, and the after, well, there was nothing left. So, Bradenton, we got lucky, man. I'm telling you, like, we had some damages. I know it's going to suck that we lost our beaches, but compared to what could have happened, are you kidding me? We got so lucky. So be thankful that at least the city of Bradenton is intact. Yes, we lost our beaches for a while, but still be thankful because this could have been so much worse. In fact, part of the reason why I went out there, is that a 2-story mobile home? Part of the reason I went out there and did this footage was thinking, okay, I'm pretty sure this is going to be gone. And sometimes the insurance companies tell people, hey, blah, 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 whatever, but I drive through these mobile home parks because sometimes there's people who the insurance company will say, well, the mobile home was destroyed before the hurricane, but if we have fresh footage, they can send that off to the insurance company, like, hey, this is what it looked like the day before. That happened a few times with my other videos where the insurance company had some questions, and there happened to be a YouTube video on my channel of the place a day before the hurricane. So anyways, insurance companies are really crappy, and unfortunately, I saw a few things on the island that left me scratching my head. Like, as I'm doing my videos, like, of the aftermath footage, I'm seeing houses that had $400,000 worth of cars on the driveway. And I'm thinking to myself, if I had $400,000 worth of cars on a property that's in an evacuation zone, wouldn't you get those vehicles off the island before the storm surge? It seems like every one of these rich houses has $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 worth of cars on the driveway. And it almost seems like a lot of these people leave these cars in these areas on purpose, while then the insurance companies come and give these people a fat check for $200,000 or $300,000 for other vehicles that were damaged without questioning, hey, by the way, why did you leave your $300,000 car on an island if you knew there was a storm surge coming? I feel like these insurance companies should really ask questions when a vehicle gets flooded on one of these barrier islands. They should put a stipulation in the insurance contracts, but they don't, because these are rich people losing $1 million cars, you know what I mean? But like, what they should really do is, like, if it made sense, right, would be like, hey, stipulation, by the way, why did you leave your $400,000 Porsche on a barrier island during an evacuation order? If you were in town, for example. Oh, if you were in another state, I guess it's understandable. But if you're in town and your $400,000 Porsche got flooded, that raises some questions. But they don't. They just send out a check for it. Then people in poor neighborhoods like this lose everything, and the insurance companies don't give them nothing. But you best believe that the first checks to go out are going to be those rich people's cars that get flooded. Cars that got flooded over nothing. Because I feel like when I see a house that has $400,000 worth of flooded cars, the first thing that I ask myself is, you got $400,000 worth of cars and you left them on a barrier island that was about to get hit by a hurricane? Does that make any sense? It really doesn't. But again, those will be the first people to get a check in the mail, and the people who lose their house, the only thing they got to live, will be the last people to get a check in the mail. But I do find it awfully suspicious that these insurance companies let these people do that. Like, I feel like if you have $500,000 worth of cars on a barrier island and there's an evacuation order, and let's say it's your main residence, you were there, what excuse do you have not to get these cars off the island? But again, those are the first checks to go out with a hurricane. And again, the people that lose everything will remain in battle with these insurance companies forever to get a roof over their heads, while the rich people leave their cars on the island knowing there's a storm surge because they know they're going to get their money back. Every time I see these flooding events, it's so obvious and blatant what people are doing with these cars during these hurricanes. I think of Hurricane Ian, it was something like 300,000 vehicles that were destroyed. You could have got those cars out of there. Not every single last one of them, but I feel like if you are in an evacuation zone, and you leave a vehicle in an evacuation zone, especially a very expensive vehicle, a vehicle that's worth over $100,000, you don't just forget that your $100,000 car is on an island that's going to get flooded. That doesn't seem to happen. It's very obvious that people purposely, I've even seen people bringing in cars and placing them on these properties for these events. It's very straightforward what they're doing. But again, they want to blame the poor person. Oh, there's a lot of the poor people in Florida doing insurance fraud left and right. Well, who's really doing insurance fraud is the rich people. You know who's really doing insurance fraud right now? The rich people. They are the ones that are actually doing the most fraud. But then they want to blame the regular working class person. I lived in Lehigh Acres, Florida. My car insurance for 2 newer vehicles was $543, while people on Fort Myers Beach, whose cars were in 15 feet of water, are paying $170 for the same exact vehicles. Why is that the case? Shouldn't it be the people on the barrier island who should be paying more for insurance? They're not. But not only do they pay less for insurance, but then they also get compensated quicker. And of course, there's no questions asked about sending them those checks right away. And this is the reality of insurance, that these insurance companies play a lot of favoritism to the rich, but they're very stringent, stringent, Bougainvillea. I had a brain fart right there for a minute. They're very strict on the poor people, but the rich people, send them a check. It's like when I lived in Naples, Florida for Hurricane Ian. The amount of extraordinary, I'm talking Bentleys, Ferraris, Porsches, all these crazy cars that flooded. And the only question that I have is, really? You really? That's, I mean, like, it's obvious, it's blatant. And these are big numbers. Literally, some of these luxury cars cost more than an entire house. And they're sending these people a check, no questions asked. Meanwhile, poor old lady loses her roof, can't get it put on. They end up homeless on the streets because, yellow tape. That's the reality of insurances in Florida, and these type of events only make it worse. You bet that with this situation, you're going to see insurance prices climb once again in Florida. And again, they had no problem sending people $400,000 for 3 luxury cars that flooded. But you best believe, if you're an old lady with a roof that's missing, they're going to give you a hard time. It's shameless, it's embarrassing, but that's the way the system works.